Right, training intensifiers. So today we're discussing all things to do with training intensifiers. I want to just explain to you what my stance is, who I use them for and who I don't use them for, and what some of my reservations are around using them. So just to give you some background, I'm a coach of 11 years. I coach people to get their goal physique or strength. So I need to be very careful about the techniques that I employ because essentially my job is people paying me to get results. So I have to be very laser focused in terms of what works and then taking away what detracts from performance. So that's my vested interest in knowing about this stuff and experimenting with it. So over the course of the video, I'm going to explain to you what my main criticisms are around using them. I'm also going to speak about the paradox of who should use intensity techniques versus who wants to use them. And also I'm going to go through the various intensity techniques that I know of and talk about the pros and cons. And in the end, I'll give you a bit of a summary around what my stance is. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, my main criticism around intensifiers is this. In a nutshell, they're designed to give you more of those effective hard reps at the end. So let's say you take a set to failure, okay? You're getting those 5 effective reps at the end, and then you extend the set somehow, whether it's a forced rep, a rest pause, whatever it is, right? It's an extension of the set. You don't allow for a complete recovery and you go back into the set, either immediately after or 20 seconds or 30 seconds afterwards. The goal being to rack up more of those effective reps, those results producing reps. And don't get hung up on the terminology around effective reps. The point is, it's supposed to make your lifting more intense. You're supposed to get more of those intense, hard reps, right? That's the idea. Now, the problem is, most people, in my experience, have enough of a problem taking one straight set all the way hard enough. That's the issue. So without throwing a bunch of extra distractions on top, most people have a hard enough time just taking that one straight set to failure or close. So if you add on a bunch of stuff on top, like drop sets or forced reps or rest pause, those additions, rather than make the set more intense, ironically, they can actually reduce the intensity. It's almost like a spotter jumping in too early. It's really annoying when that happens because the effort that you want to put into the set, they take it away. They give you help. It's the most frustrating thing. We've all seen that reels on Instagram where a guy's just about to get a PR on a bench and somebody jumps in and helps him and takes it up. It's the most annoying thing because it reduces the work that he does. He could have finished that rep. He could have owned that rep. The spotter in that circumstance denied him that. And what I see all too often with these intensity techniques is that people are doing that to themselves. It's hard to finish a set and go all the way. Whether that's to failure or whether it's to 0 RAR or to 1 RAR, whatever, it's hard to go there. Now, if you provide somebody who already struggles to go there with an out, with a get out clause, they're going to take it. I've seen people send videos to me of triple drop sets and every single set looked like it was at least 5 RAR. And they're super proud of themselves because they've got a burn, they've got a pump, they feel like they're working hard and they've done a triple drop set. So they assume that's hard work. It isn't. Not if each set was at 5 RAR. So my main criticism is with this, just to summarize the first part, and one of the reasons I don't use a lot of this, and I'm very careful with who I use it for, is that the people who can use them, who are intense enough, who have the discipline to go all the way and then do more, those guys typically don't need to use it because they can work hard enough on straight sets. Now, the ones who want to use these intensity techniques, the ones who really like using them, most of the time, they like using them because they get a burn, they get a pump, but it's easier. So the paradox is this. This is the intensifier paradox. The advanced lifter who can actually execute these intensifiers correctly with enough intensity, who can do rest pause and take every set all the way, those guys and girls, they probably won't need to do them unless it's a niche circumstance like saving time. Now, everyone else who is still working on the ability of taking that one hard straight set all the way, those guys, they shouldn't use intensifiers because it acts as a distraction. It acts as an out. It acts as a get out clause. What they need to do is continue to focus on practicing the skill of working harder. And it is a skill. You're not going to do that by adding in more distractions. Now, you might sit there and go, no, Faz, I bench a plate and a half and I work really hard. And yeah, you might think you work hard, but your interpretation of what hard work is will increase over time. You might say, well, I feel like I'm working hard. I'm sure you feel like you're working hard. But listen, you will be able to work harder when and if you make it to the advanced stage. It's a natural progression. It's not just about getting bigger and stronger. It's about learning how to be more intense as well. That is part of the process. So you are going to handicap yourself in that process if you add in these distractions. So for that reason, I'm not a huge fan of intensifiers unless I really trust the individual to work hard and push themselves all the way. Just want to open with that, and I will reference that over the course of the video. Now, before I speak about the specific intensity techniques that I use and I consider, let me just shout out the sponsor of the app, and that is the Fazlifts RX app, your prescription for gains. That is my coaching app. Now, if you sign up to that coaching app, you will get your training laid out initially based on your specifications, whether you train at your own home gym, a commercial gym, whatever equipment you have, whatever your goals are, whether they're muscle building, strength, a combination, however many days a week you want to train, what body part you want to specialize on if you want to, a whole range of factors to help initiate your routine. And then after that, if something's not quite right, you just simply say, hey, I want to change it. I want to prefer something like this or this. And then every single week, every single session, you have a chance to feed back to AI Faz regarding how the session went, how the week went, and he will then provide further guidance as you move. So really, it's a system where the longer you use the app, the better it will be for you because it will learn you and your body and how you respond to exercise. So it's a fantastic app. It is trained on my materials. So 20 of my videos I've selected which best represent the philosophy of coaching that I have, as well as all my ebooks, and as well as all the data from thousands of athletes on bootcamp programs. So check it out. The link's in the description. It's a very effective app. I'm more than happy to put my name behind it. All right, back to the video. Now let's speak about just specific intensity techniques. The first one is under the broad banner of rest pause. So rest pause can involve things like MyReps, MyRep match, DC rest pause. Anytime you have a single activation set, which is the first part of the set, and that could be of any range, it varies, lower up to higher, it just mimics a straight set. And then you follow that with any number of additional mini sets with incomplete recovery. So you might go in after 20 seconds or 30 seconds or 10 breaths or 20 breaths. Now, with the earlier proviso in mind, I do quite like these because assuming we're training hard, then we're getting more of those end effective reps. Now, again, over the course of the video, I'll keep referencing the term effective reps. I'm not here to argue that point. I'm just in general saying the tough reps, you'll get more of those, right? So I quite like this because you're not dropping the weight. You are getting more of those effective reps after a short period of time where you're allowed to recover a little bit and just get right back in the mix in the position you were before. So let's say the activation set allows you to get 5 effective reps because you went all the way to failure, right? Now, if you rest for only about 20-30 seconds, you're going to get right back in that zone. So because your muscles are still carrying a fair bit of fatigue, they've not been allowed to recover yet because you've only rested for 20-30 seconds. So you're going to get right back to the point where you might only have 3 or 4 reps in the tank. So you're right back at the end of the set, getting all those effective reps. You don't have to do the build-up from before. That's whether you are doing MyReps, whether you're doing MyRep match, or whether you're doing DC rest pause or your own type of rest pause. I like rest pause because it's not a bad way. Keep the weight the same to get more of those effective reps. It's probably the one that I use the most often because you can maintain the same weight and it puts you in the right place to get more of those hard reps. Right, next up is cluster sets. Cluster sets is an interesting way to do things. So the way that it differs from the rest pause set is you're not trying to generate any kind of fatigue. You're not trying to go all the way in a set to generate that fatigue to keep you in the zone. The idea behind clusters is you're trying to pick a weight which is heavy enough that even the first 1 or 2 reps is an effective rep. So you might pick a 5 rep max or a 6 rep max. And then you might do only a handful of reps, say 2 or 3 reps. So at least 1 or 2 of those reps are effective reps, but you're still training 3 or 4 RAR. So you're not generating fatigue from mini set to mini set. That's the difference. Clusters are supposed to be able to give you effective reps and give you those hard reps without generating a lot of fatigue from mini set to mini set. So the idea is you can get in more effective reps while reducing your fatigue. So for example, let's say you did pick something like a 5 or 6 rep max and you only got 1 or 2 effective reps from each mini set. You could do 5. Rack up 10 effective reps with your 5 or 6 rep max and still not be completely trashed by the end of the series. That's the general idea. You can possibly get more effective reps with a given weight without having to take something all the way to failure and generating all those fatigue related issues. Okay. So, it's a potentially useful application. I think it's a bit trickier. Psychologically, it's not as fun because you're not really going all out. You're holding yourself back quite a lot. And that can be a bit frustrating and not as fun to train, which is one of the reasons why I don't personally do those sets, because I like to just go for it. Next one is drop sets. So I'll say from the off, I'm not a fan of drop sets at all. I don't like the idea of reducing the weight and then carrying on, because I don't think that gives you a great deal. It gives you a great burn, gives you a great pump. You feel more tired. I just don't think it corresponds that well to growth. So I don't tend to use them that often. The idea behind a drop set is you do your main set, so you get your growth from your main set. Then assuming you train hard, you drop the weight down and you carry on, extend the set. I just don't see you getting a lot from the drop portion of the drop set. So I don't tend to program very much unless it's for lighter body parts, like basically a side drop. I'm not a huge fan. I'd rather do rest pulls, or I might implement drop sets just for variety. That's all, just to give the client something interesting. But I don't think you're getting a lot from the drop. I think you're getting most of it from the first initial hard set. And again, going back to the beginning of the video, if the drop set acts as a distraction, it's a negative. So you've got to be careful with this stuff. So before we go on, I just want to plug my own coaching. So what I do for a living essentially is I'm a coach full-time. I work with a large roster of athletes. That's literally all I do. And they can range from just your average Joe, Jack, or Jill, which is the majority of the people who I coach these days, and even to competitors of either bodybuilding or strength sports. So I use the experience that I have in 3 sports. I competed in bodybuilding, powerlifting, and strongman to coach others to do the same. But also, as I say, at this point in my life, most of the people who work with me are just your regular Joe and Jill who want to shape up a little bit for their own personal, individual life goals, which is very cool. I respect that. So if you want me to arrange all this for you, take the thinking out of it, just think like an athlete. If you've got a lot of stuff going on in your life, job, family, whatever else, you just want to think like an athlete and let a professional handle your training, just get in touch, let's talk. I have a range of different ways that you can work with me, but my premium one-to-one service is the best way. So get in touch, let's talk, let me handle your training for 6 months to a year or more, and let's go. Due to the popularity of YouTube, I am getting quite close to being at full capacity with my client roster. So get in while you can, because most of my clients do stay with me for a long time, a year plus. So spots don't always come up that often. All right, guys, back to the video. Next up is forced reps. This is probably my least favorite. I think they're very chaotic. You can't quantify how much your partner is helping. It's the classic, it's all you, bro. 96% of studies show that it was not all you. I'm not a big fan, okay? And also, you're very much dependent on partners. And I always find training partners come in too soon. Always. Every single time. And it's so annoying. You can tell that hits me in my soul. When you're fighting with everything you've got to get an additional rep, and you just see your partner's hand move over to the bar, you're like, just please. So forced reps, not a fan of those. They're very chaotic. Partners always come in way too soon. They ruin your set, they ruin your intensity. If you have a very sadistic partner who's not there to make the workout nicer for you, but is there to actually put you in pain, then maybe it's a different thing. And that's kind of how I was taught how to lift from the old guys at the gym when I was younger. But you don't get people like that anymore. Everyone's too nice. So not a fan of forced reps. They're far too chaotic and you're far too dependent on somebody else. Next intensity technique is AMRAP. So not a fan, honestly. First of all, very few people are doing as many reps as possible on large compounds. I mean, you saw some old powerlifting routines which had AMRAPs for squats and deadlifts. I think Juggernaut Systems had one where it was your final set was an AMRAP. And you were doing that every single week. And during the week, you were doing that for squats and deadlifts. Who are you kidding? No one's doing AMRAP on deadlifts. You're doing as many reps as you fancy. Okay, it should be called AMRAP. It's not AMRAP. No one's doing AMRAP on squats and deadlifts every single week without fail. Doesn't happen. They're a joke of a technique. They are far too dependent on breakdown of form, cardiovascular limitations, and as a result, at the best, they're useless. And at the worst, if you do actually push hard, they're dangerous. So I'm not a fan of AMRAPs. I very, very rarely implement those. The final one I'll speak about is pre-exhaust. Limited use. I think equipment considerations are the first one. So if you go from a leg extension to a leg press, you have to hog two pieces of equipment. No one likes that guy who's hogging two bits of equipment just because he wants to do a half-assed double set of both. And that's what happens. I also don't think they're particularly effective. If you want to have a compound exercise be safer with less weight, then I would just look at the arrangement of your exercises. So do all of your leg extensions first with enough rest and do them intensely. And then move on to your leg press and then move on to a squat pattern if you want to. That's the way that I would look at doing things. But going immediately from a leg extension to a leg press or a leg extension to a squat, not a huge fan. I think it detracts from the intensity of the larger compound or even the first one as well. It detracts from both for the same reasons I gave at the beginning of the video. And I don't like the equipment limitations, and it could potentially be unsafe as well. Now, before I go on to the final summary, I just want to give you guys an insight into how I track or how I would recommend tracking these intensifiers, just to make it easy on yourself. So historically, people have tracked every part of a rest pause or every part of a drop set, including the first and the second parts. I don't think that's necessary because all we're trying to do is to track a proxy of progress. In my experience, it is enough to track the activation set. So that is the first part of whatever you do. The only possible exception will be cluster sets. So let's say, for example, I'm doing a rest pause and I get 100 kilos for 8 reps. And then after that, I do my 2 or 3 mini sets. Now, all I care about next session is doing more than 100 for 8 in that first part of the activation set. I don't need to track the other mini sets. I do them because I've chosen to use rest pause, but I don't need to track them to ensure that I'm going forward, because all the tracking needs to do is to ensure that you are progressing. That's all. I don't need to know the specifics of every single mini set because, once again, that's a distraction. I don't want to count those things. I also don't need to track those things. You can quite simply just track the activation set and progress that. So if I go from 100 for 8 to 100 for 9, the next time I made progress. It doesn't matter what else was happening because the bottom line is just progress, and try not to give yourself more distractions, dilute your training intensity for the set. That's how I'd recommend tracking things with rest pause. Drop sets, if you use them, are the same. Clusters, you kind of have to track those all. For forced reps, I would only ever track what you did because the partner is a chaotic element. You don't know how much they're helping or whatever, so don't track any forced reps. By adopting this strategy, you'll just make life a lot simpler for yourself and be able to focus on what really matters, which is working hard. Right, with all that said, I want to give you guys a final summary. So, intensifiers represent a paradox. Advanced lifters who are mentally and physically capable of giving their all on a set and then extending that set are usually the ones who don't need to do them because they will get enough from a single straight set, unless it's for reasons like saving time. Now, everyone else who should be working on their ability to push harder, for them, this will be a distraction. It won't be a positive addition. So I very rarely program these for clients. I program them under specific conditions for people who I trust, who can work hard without being distracted and making the sets less intense, which is very few people. Generally, straight sets are superior. But the ones that I do like mostly center around rest pause. I think that's a good way to do things. And rest pause usually for me will involve something like a DC style rest pause. I don't like to get too particular about the rest pause. People get very particular about MyoReps, MyoRep match. The types of people who really like MyoReps and MyoRep match and don't like other forms of rest pause, in my experience, they end up being quite performative. It's more for show. Look what I'm doing. I'm doing MyoRep match. Get me. If you're a hard lifting trainee and you're doing rest pause, you're probably not going to care what kind of rest pause it is. If you are very attached to your particular style of rest pause, there's a personality type. I can almost guarantee you don't train hard. So those are the ones that I like. That is my conclusion. Hopefully you found that video useful, and I will see you in the next one. Go check it out.